Is your cat scratching items through your home and it's driving you crazy? I'm Dr. M. Welcome to BMC. Buckle up. We are going to dive into why cats scratch the things they do, and I'm going to give you the tools that you need to keep you and your cat happy in your home. Join me. You'll learn something today. It's an incredibly common thing that clients will say to me that their cat is scratching carpet or furniture or curtains, etc. in their home, and that they're really upset by this. There was also one research study that found that cat scratching is the third most common reason for cats to be relinquished to shelters. This is devastating, and it doesn't need to be the case. The first thing that we need to cover is that it is both normal and necessary for your cat to scratch. Scratching has long been explained as a way for cats to keep their toenails sharp. It's also been explained as a way for them to keep using the extraction and retraction that their paws undergo when they extend their claws. The motion of scratching also will remove the outer sheath that's surrounding your cat's nails. Cats will also often scratch as a behavior when they are excited or sometimes when they're stressed. It also helps a cat use the muscles of their forelimbs and throughout the rest of their body. It can also be a way for them to get in a nice stretch. Claws are also tools that cats will use to communicate. Cats have scents and pheromones in their interdigital glands, and when they're scratching at something, they will be leaving those scents behind for other cats. And this might help a cat to communicate what is their territory versus what isn't. So scratching is also an important visual and olfactory way for cats to communicate. Some cats have more of an urge to mark their territory than others, and they might do that with scratching or spraying. They might also do that by rubbing their facial pheromones onto items. Social tension between cats can cause an increase in the need that cats feel to mark places. If you've ever spent any time watching cats who are scratching things, sometimes they will do it in quite a relaxed sort of a manner. Other times they might be excited or agitated, and this helps us to understand that there are many reasons why cats might engage in the behavior of scratching. It's also important that we understand that individual cats will have preferences when it comes to scratching, and these preferences will involve both the orientation that they prefer to scratch, whether it is horizontal or angled or vertical, and they will also have substrate preferences for what they prefer to scratch on. Some cats will also do more of a raking motion in long strokes, where other cats might tend to be picking kind of at the same spot while they're scratching. So the first thing that we need to cover is that if you have a cat, it is required that you offer them a large number of places and opportunities for them to scratch, as it is a required behavior for them to be able to engage in. If we are looking at the research in cats on this topic, it's important where these scratching locations are offered. Generally around the outsides of your home, near windows and exterior walls, because your cat may view these as a way for them to mark their territory. It's also important to have scratching options near places where your cat tends to sleep a lot, as it's common for them to want to wake up and scratch something. You should also have scratching options near where you tend to greet your cat, as if they get excited, a lot of cats will want to scratch. The tricky part is that we can't just ask a cat what and where and how they want to scratch. So this requires work on your behalf to do some trial and error. Scratching is instinctual to cats, and so offering a large variety of options will help you to figure out which your cat prefers, and then you can implement more of the preferred substrates and orientations for your cat. You should have an option for scratching in every room that your cat goes into. When the urge to scratch hits them, they will not think, oh, I need to run up a flight of stairs or across the house to do it. They're just going to find the nearest item that suits them, and they'll use that. So it's up to you to be providing those appropriate appropriate substrates for them to scratch on. Research does indicate that the majority of cats prefer sisal for scratching. The vertical options that you provide need to be at least 3 feet tall, and all of them need to be stable for your cat. They do not want to use unstable surfaces. Some cats will prefer other substrates other than sisal, although it's less common. If you're going to trial other substrates, things like cardboard and carpet are more common. Personally, I tend to try to offer sisal and cardboard to my cats first because I don't want them to have the chance to get confused to think that all carpet is for scratching. So I tend to reserve trialing that for a little later if I find out that they don't like sisal or cardboard. Some cats will also prefer wood to scratch on, so that's another option that you can consider. Trialing horizontal, angled, and vertical orientations is very important. Remember that for vertical posts, they need to be at least 3 feet high so that your cat is able to fully stretch while they are scratching. And remember that cats are drawn visually and due to scent to go back and scratch items that were previously scratched. If you are trying to get your cat to use a new scratching resource that you've provided for them, do not take them over and run their paws on it. That is more likely to make the cat feel that that object is frightening or scary, or that you are frightening or scary, and will result in your cat not using that object. What you do want to do is give your cat reinforcement anytime that they investigate the object that you're wanting them to use. You might choose to reinforce them with some playtime. Using a toy, like a string toy, on the scratching object is a great way to get a cat to put their paws onto it. And when they feel that sisal substrate, that's often enough for them to just start scratching after they feel that under their paws. I will also leave little containers of treats near scratching posts when I have a new cat join my household. Anytime, every time I catch them investigating or using an appropriate scratching post, I will give them a high value treat for doing so. This is pretty effective because behavior that is reinforced will happen more often. So that's how you teach your cat, I would like you to scratch these items, and please keep scratching these items. And we even have research backing this up, that when you reward your cat for using the scratching posts, they are more likely to use them again in the future. Now, as far as pheromones go, Siva does have a product called Fila Scratch that you might consider using on scratching posts that you want your cat to use. It's a synthetic analog of a cat's natural pheromones, and so it is a way to use a chemical signal to trigger your cat to identify that object as one that should be scratched on. There was a crossover clinical trial of 19 cats that seemed to show when Fila Scratch was used that it was helpful in getting cats to scratch on their scratching posts. It's very important that you do not use Feel-Away, as those pheromones will make your cat less likely to scratch on that object. However, because we know that inter-cat stress or cat stress of any type can increase their scratching behaviors, it might be appropriate to diffuse Feel-Away in your home just to help reduce stress, but you must not apply Feel-Away directly to the object you want your cat to scratch on. In general, the research on pheromones is not that great, so I don't recommend this as a first line thing to trial, but if it's something you wanted to trial as an adjunct to the other things we've already talked about, you could consider it. It's also crucial that you do not punish your cats, period. This is important for everything, but when we are talking about scratching in particular, this is very important because punishment will increase the fear and the stress that your cat feels. That will paradoxically cause them to scratch more. So if you're looking to reduce your cat's scratching on objects in your home, punishment must be avoided completely. Common punishments that people will use for cats are things like startling them, spraying them with water, yelling at them, hitting them, and so on. All of this is completely inappropriate to use in all situations, and that includes this one. The reality is that these punishment tactics increase fear, increase avoidance of humans, increase anxiety, increase stress, and that will result in more scratching, not less. Truly, the answer to this problem for people is to provide the type of scratching post that your cat prefers in the location that they want it to be in. The value of doing that cannot be overstated. That is truly the key. When cats are scratching things that we don't want them to, it's because their needs for scratching are not being met appropriately. And so you need to change what you're offering your cat, and when you have those needs met, they will scratch the objects that are provided and the household will return to harmony. If your cat does scratch something that you didn't want them to, it is important that you clean that object as best you can with water to remove their pheromones that they may have left behind. That will help reduce the draw of the cat to that object again in the future. And then I would add an object that they would like to scratch on. You'll need to figure out what that means for your specific cat. Put it close to the object you don't want them to scratch on, so that if they go up to it and think, should I scratch this again? Ooh, that scratching post looks even better. I'm going to use that instead. And that will redirect your cat from scratching the item that you don't want them to onto scratching an item that you do want them to. And then when you reward that behavior that you want to see, you will easily train your cat to use the scratching post and not your furniture. I'm also going to note here that declawing cats is not okay, appropriate, ethical, or ever an option. It's illegal for good reason in many countries, including where I practice. I know that in the US it's still done in some places, which is appalling. Scratching is a necessary, normal behavior for cats. We need to meet their needs. If you cannot meet their needs, then you should not have a cat. I know that sounds harsh, but it's really that simple. You cannot expect a cat not to scratch. You just can't. You need to offer them the scratching resources that they require. It is part of the basics of having a cat. I've covered declawing in detail in a previous video. I'll make sure to link it in the video description if you have any questions about it, the research surrounding it, or the short and long-term harms that it causes to the cats that it's done to. I put up a new video most Fridays and I read every single comment that you leave for me. Please tell me, what's your cat's favorite substrate and orientation to scratch? Do you even know what it is? If not, you need to find out. If you have a future video topic you'd like me to cover, don't hesitate to leave it in the description. And to prove that I read every comment you leave for me, I highlight a new one every week. I absolutely look forward to seeing you in my next video. You have a good weekend. Bye. This really is a human problem, not a cat one.